Welcome into this edition of the Penn Live Wrestling Podcast. We have officially flipped into team postseason mode this week. District 3 team championships begin in AA and AAA. Dave Heckert's here with me. I'm Dustin Hawkinsmith. We're going to take a quick tour through both of these AA and AAA brackets. Really briefly, just the schedule for the week. Monday, we're sitting here on a Monday. AA kicks off with first round matchups. You can call them pigtails if you want. Tuesday, we got first round and quarterfinals at 4 AAA sites. Number 1, Hempfield. Number 2, Dallastown. Number 3, Central Dauphin. And number 4, Gettysburg. Wednesday, you get into quarterfinals and semifinals in the AA bracket. Those will be hosted by number 1, Boiling Springs, and number 2, Bishop Mcdevitt. Then Thursday, we're going to Spring Grove for the semifinals and some consolation matches in AAA. And it all comes to a head on Saturday at Cumberland Valley High School with consolation semifinals in AA and then consolation and championship finals in AA and AAA. So it'll be a busy week. This is actually, Dave, from a coaching standpoint, you can offer up your take, but for me, the sheer volume of days that there are postseason things happening, this is the busiest week of the year for me.
Yeah, it's a busy week of the year. It's a fun week of the year. I always feel like, as a coach, once you hit this week, I mean, it's all fun, good stuff from here on out. You're going to get good dual meets, then you get into the individual postseason. With wrestling so much though, I want to keep in mind here that it can be tough for the athletes. Making weight every other day is a tough thing to do sometimes, especially at the end of the year when guys are they have to keep an eye on their descension plan for the individual postseason. So they have to be down to a certain weight, not even sometimes for the team stuff, but just to be able to participate at the weight they want to for the individual postseason. So, there's a lot that goes into it. Fun time of year. I think you're going to see some pretty good matches here in the district team wrestle-offs here in both AA and AAA.
So there's a good chance that people listening to this don't really catch this podcast before tonight's first round in AA. You got 4 matchups: number 8 Biglerville against number 9 Upper Dauphin, number 5 West Perry. They slid to number 5 after losing on Saturday. They're hosting Brandywine Heights. Number 7 Camp Hill's hosting Susquehanna. Number 10 and number 6 Newport is hosting number 11 Elko. Anything jump out to you about those matchups?
No, I feel like the one I have highlighted here, the one that is the most interesting, and really should be because they're the 2 closest numbers are the 8 and 9, like Biglerville and Upper Dauphin. I think that one there. I feel like the other ones. I feel like West Perry, Camp Hill, Susquehanna. I think I see Camp Hill. You know what I mean? They're taking that one, and then Newport and Elko, and Biglerville Upper Dauphin at 8 and 9 has for me the most intrigue there. Unfortunately for either of those two, they do jump out and grab, a pretty solid, Bowling Springs team. But, I think, you got to get into that next round to get into the wrestlebacks and stay in the tournament. But, as far as tonight, that would be the one that kind of sticks out for me.
And then looking ahead, just at the seeds 1 through 4. So obviously, I think Boiling Springs is the best team in District 3, most complete. They've got star power. I think they deserve to be that number 1, a favorite to win this whole thing. I think both of you and I have kind of seen that. Number 2, Bishop Mcdevitt. Obviously, you can't argue with the star power. We've talked about that before, and how that plays out in this tournament will be pretty fascinating to watch. Berks Catholic is an interesting one there at 3. I mean, I think they've got, a few really good individuals, and you kind of see the makings of a team coming together there. But I can't really look past, in their case, losing 51-9 to Central Dauphin. I know CD, it's the number 2 team in AAA, but I don't think a real contender even in AA would be losing to that magnitude. And then for Northern Lebanon, boy, they wrestled a tough schedule. They've got a tough draw. I mean, that 4-5 Northern Lebanon and West Perry will be a fun one to watch. And no matter who comes out of that one, presumably we'll get a rematch with Boiling Springs, who I think beat both of them pretty handily.
I actually have Northern Lebanon at my bracket I filled out. And again, it's just me having some fun. I actually have Northern Lebanon and West Perry wrestling twice in the tournament. Because I have whoever loses will come back through, and then the other one will drop down and later catch him for third. That quarterfinal there, is definitely the most intriguing. I mean, the 4-5, and you brought up Berks Catholic, and I don't know a whole lot about Berks Catholic. It's just tough for me to wrap my head around the fact that they are a better team than Northern Lebanon or West Perry, and there might even be some others you want to argue on there. But look here, I mean, that's the power rankings, and that's how it goes. And in my opinion, I think you have 12 of the best double A teams in the field, regardless of where they're placed. And like I said, I think things will wash out here. And, I have Northern and Lebanon and West Perry wrestling twice in the tournament, like I said. So, but yeah, as far as quarterfinal rounds, that match at Boiling Springs on Wednesday is definitely an intriguing one. And, Northern Lebanon, like you said, went to some pretty tough tournaments this year, and have a couple studs in their lineup. And, but I don't know. I'd like to see them against West Perry. If West Perry's at full strength, I mean, that could really even things up a little bit. If West Perry, Devin Jackson was out of the lineup, the past couple of weeks. If he's out again, that could really level the playing field a little bit, as far as those two teams. But, I hopefully he is back for West Perry and himself. But I think, that's the best quarterfinal dual meet, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, it's going to
The
be
other
one to
one,
watch.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. The other one that intrigues me a little bit, only because of the score the last time they wrestled, was Camp Hill and Mcdevitt. I mean, Camp Hill battled them a little bit. Now, I think Mcdevitt might have had some guys out and some things going on and all that, but still, I think that one there, you know what I mean, just because of how close it was before, has a little intrigue.
I mean, Camp Hill scored 30 points on Mcdevitt. So, I think, they're kind of made to, it's 74 points scored total. There's a lot of bonus points flying in that one. I think Camp Hill is kind of equipped to take advantage a little bit and score some points where Mcdevitt isn't the strongest in the lower weights there. I am at the risk of seriously underestimating Berks Catholic, and I will take that risk. I've really got my eye on if Newport can do something against them. If Newport,
I'm with you.
Newport's a
I
good
feel the same.
postseason team. I think they have developed over the course of the season. Now we haven't really seen them side by side against a bunch of teams. They had to work a little bit early in the season to beat Susquehanna. They lost against West Perry in the Perry County tournament. They have a win over Upper Dauphin, but I think for my money to have Mike Capozzoli develop some of his young guys over the course of the year, it's a different group than it was when things started out. So I'm actually going to Mcdevitt Tuesday night. I know that the Boiling Springs that pod is a little bit better, but I really want to get I really want to get a look at Berks Catholic. I really think that Newport has a chance to spring an upset there, and I want to see whoever comes out of that in the semi, how they can match up with Mcdevitt, because that will be, I think, probably Mcdevitt's toughest test of the year in that semifinal if they make it there, as I presume.
Yeah, I think it was one of those deals too, where you have Berks Catholic on there, and kudos to them for not taking anything away from them. But if you're one of those double A teams, wherever Berks Catholic is, you wanted to be that pigtail match wrestling into them. I feel like whether you're Big River, Upper Dauphin, West Perry, Camp Hill, that's a good matchup for them. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I'm with you on the Newport deal. I feel that they can definitely take Berks Catholic to the wire, if not beat them, and set up a good dual meet with Bishop Mcdevitt. I still have Bishop Mcdevitt, in control of that bottom bracket, that bottom half there. But the top definitely has, with Northern Lebanon and West Perry sitting at 4-5, just a little more strength as far as, in my opinion, teams are concerned.
Yeah, those are really good 4 and 5 teams, in this tournament. And what do you get? So you got Boiling Springs and Mcdevitt in the final. I mean, I think
I do.
it's hard to go against chalk in this setup. Having seen Boiling Springs has a 46-18 win over Northern Lebanon from a couple weeks ago at the Northern Lebanon duels. They beat West Perry 43-23 without Devin Jackson this past Saturday. I think it'll tighten up some, but I don't think in that 113 match, if Devin Jackson wrestles, there's not bonus points there. It wasn't a 12-point swing or anything. I think whoever wins between him and Rafe Barber is probably a 3-point outcome. So I don't know that changes the outcome of Saturday's duel if he does wrestle.
No, and even West Perry, I thought Boiling Springs collected some bonus points at some different spots. I didn't expect them to against West Perry, but even if they don't collect those bonus points and just win, it still doesn't it doesn't do enough for me as far as West Perry, beating Boiling Springs, and again, with the year we're having, you never know. I mean, what's going to happen with Boiling Springs? Where are they going to be? But, just from what I've seen and followed here this season, and I mean, these teams wrestled each other. So I just feel we make a pretty strong case for Boiling Springs and Bishop Mcdevitt as the final two teams.
And how do you see that match going? If that's the one we get in the championship final, we've talked about Mcdevitt a lot. We've talked about, that 106 through 138 range. And then you also have the fact that, there's a good chance you get a Michael Dugan, Andrew Christie at 152. You've got Mcdevitt with a pretty good advantage at 215 to 285, but Boiling Springs can scrap where Mcdevitt's got some strengths. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a kid like Ian Wilson at 145, scrap with Jake Guilfoyle. I don't think there's anything that you can take for granted there if you're on Mcdevitt's side. So Mcdevitt got their strengths and they've got their bonus point scores, but I think Boiling Springs at the very minimum can negate at least a couple of those bonus point guys.
And you're exactly right. That's the key, I mean, not giving up those bonus point matches. And that's what Boiling Springs won't do, and I feel like Boiling Springs is even stronger down below. And, are they going to give up some bonus? Sure. But I mean, they're not going to give up the normal bonus that I think Mcdevitt's used to collecting, what I mean, up top and through the middle there. So, and I'm not saying, look, I mean, the Christie Dugan match, Guilfoyle and Wilson, I mean, Mcdevitt might win those matches, but they're not pinning those guys or getting bonus, in my opinion, on those guys. So, I just think that Boiling Spring has a little too much balance and will fend off those bonus points. So, but look, who knows? Who knows what could happen, and that's why we wrestle, right? That's why we do it.
Yep. So we both kind of think the same thing. Mcdevitt makes a pretty good case as the number 2 there, but I think we both like Boiling Springs. It's a little too much depth, a little too much star power to win that. And then I've got the same thing you do. I've got Boiling Springs 1, Mcdevitt 2, and then I've got West Perry 3 and Northern Lebanon 4 at the end of this.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And again, like, I felt pretty strongly that Boiling Springs, Mcdevitt and West Perry were the best 3. But Northern Lebanon, if West Perry can't seem to fix things here and get back on path, who knows? You wrestle a team twice even. You know what I mean? Like, maybe West Perry does beat Northern Lebanon first round, but you know how it is. You wrestle a guy again, you maybe gain some confidence in different spots, and that can be reversed. So it'll be interesting, man. I think see how the AA shakes out here. But I in my opinion, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. The top 4, in my opinion, are pretty clear to me. Again, I'm no genius by any stretch, but yeah, I agree with you. So.
Yeah, we'll see. So consolation semifinals at Cumberland Valley High School for in AA. I believe 10:30 is the start time. They wrestle the consolation semis. Then AAA is at 1:00. Those are championship and consolation finals, and then AA back again to give those teams a little time at 3:30 championship and consolation finals there. So should be a good group either way. Let's look at AAA, where I think you've got a lot more variables, where I think you can make a pretty good case for the top 4 teams in AA. You can looks like there's going to be a lot of chalk that holds true. The AAA has more opportunities, I think, for a little bit of chaos. Walk me through, Dave, early on, which higher seeded team or teams do you feel like has the best chance to make a little bit of noise in that first round?
Oh man. Well, I think, looking at the round of 16 here, from top to bottom, the first one I have a star next to is like the Warwick York Suburban match. And that winner wrestles to Hempfield, which could be a tall order, but I think Warwick and York Suburban are both somewhat similar type of teams, so that one, again, 8 and 9 has some intrigue. The match that the 2 matches that I think really kind of stick out to me as ones that I'd want to see is the Carlisle Spring Grove match. Carlisle sitting at 5, Spring Grove sitting at 12, wrestling into Gettysburg, I would presume, at 4. And then the other one is number 7 Cumberland Valley wrestling number 10 Manheim Township, which could be interesting there. And the winner of that one wrestling into Dallastown. So those two pods, in my opinion, the Gettysburg, Conrad Weiser, Carlisle, Spring Grove, that pod there at Gettysburg High School, and then the pod at Dallastown with Dallastown, Solanco, Cumberland Valley, Manheim Township are the two that kind of interest me the most there. I don't see Central Dauphin having any difficulty there with Redland first round. Good for Bags getting his guys in, but I think that's going to come to an end. Wilson and Central Dauphin, again, I do think Central Dauphin has a little too much for Wilson, but I guess we'll see. But as far as first round, I think, the 3 big matches, like I said, Warwick, York Suburban, Carlisle, Spring Grove, and Cumberland Valley, Manheim Township.
So let's focus on that Gettysburg pod real quick. You've got Gettysburg, who wrestled into the District 3 team championship finals last year. They won it 2 years ago when there was the last time we had a full tournament. Chris Haynes and his guys know how to win these types of matches. They know how to wrestle in a complimentary way. We've looked at their schedule, and they're 17-0, and we haven't seen a lot of stiff tests, but at the same time, recent tradition says that they're going to be on their A game for this. And it's just something that you can't really account for. And I would say probably something pretty similar about Dallastown at 2, 2 years ago, Gettysburg beat Dallastown in the finals. Dallastown upset Central Dauphin in the semifinals 2 years ago. Dave Gable and his team, they just have a way of getting better and better and better as the year goes on. They're a tough out no matter what. But to focus on Gettysburg, Carlisle and Spring Grove, a lot of tradition at Spring Grove. These guys know how to wrestle, and they expect to be here, and they expect to win these matches. And that's something that Carlisle, having not wrestled in this tournament since 2011, that's something that you want to see. Relative inexperience, not a single wrestler on this roster has competed in the District 3 team championships. I think they're going to be okay in that first round. But you do have to weigh that against Spring Grove and their reputation and their ability to wrestle up in these types of matches. And then let's say Carlisle gets through Spring Grove, the Gettysburg Carlisle match, I think should be a pretty fun one in the quarterfinals.
You mentioned Gettysburg, and I mentioned before to you, like, their schedule. I'd love to see them wrestle, this year anyway, some better teams. But here's the deal with Gettysburg, right? They still come in and get it done. So it's not like they're a team that doesn't wrestle a good schedule and then they come in undefeated and get beat. Like they wrestle, the schedule this year was questionable. I didn't like it, but at the end of the day, they're still going to come in and they're still going to get it done. Next year they're by choice, they're moving up into the Mid-Penn Commonwealth. So, I do appreciate that. I do like that side of Gettysburg, and, Gettysburg's going to be a tough out just because they have so much balance and they're all bought in, the Carlisle Spring Grove match though, that's interesting for me because, Carlisle again, they lost to York Suburban earlier this year. Now York Suburban sits at the 9 seed, which kind of has some intrigue to me. Carlisle obviously 16-1. Now Spring Grove, like their 6 losses, all right, were to Chambersburg at the beginning of the year, and we know there was a difference Chambersburg from the beginning to the end because of injuries, right? They lost to Chambersburg. They lost to the Hempfield, who's the number 1 seed. They lost to Mifflin County, the number 3 team in the state. They lost to Dallastown, the 2 seed. They lost to Cumberland Valley and a team from down in District 1, Kennett. So, their losses are to some darn good teams. So in the same token, like I know Tyke and Spring Grove, they're going to show up and they're going to be ready to wrestle, and they won't be intimidated of Carlisle. Now, that being said, can they get it done? And Carlisle has shown me at the end of the year here that the way they go after bonus points and they go after it hard, and their style, they lay some pins on some people. Spring Grove could be in deep trouble. As far as the Gettysburg Gettysburg Carlisle, if that happens second round, that'll be interesting. And that match last year when they wrestled, there's some pretty good bouts in that dual meet last year. But I still feel pretty confident in Gettysburg. I just think that they're solid. They're bought in. They wrestle hard, but definitely an intriguing little pod there. And then obviously the winner of that match, gets, in my opinion, would get Hempfield. the 1 seed. So that whole top half of the bracket's an interesting deal to me. So
And I'll get to I want to talk about the Dallastown pod real quick, but for me, the more I looked at, what all these 16 teams resumes were, the more I came away believing that Hempfield, in my viewpoint, is pretty clear cut the number one team. I've had them there in my personal rankings. I've had in my head, I've had them there all year, but with a little bit of trepidation, just not really sure how their formula is going to translate. Are they really truly a cut above? And to me, looking at what they've done this year, relative to everybody else, they are truly the number one team in District 3. I wouldn't say a heavy favorite because that is some work you got to do against Gettysburg. They are going to be hungry for it in the semis. That'll be a great match if it happens at Spring Grove. But Hempfield, I really like what they've got put together. They wrestle tough and hard too. It's not like that's exclusive to Gettysburg or exclusive to Dallastown. Hempfield has the same formula going for them, and I think just a little too much for Gettysburg in that semifinal.
I agree with you. I think Hempfield's definitely the number one team in the district, or the team to beat, I should say. 2 years ago we wrestled Hempfield, Cumberland Valley did, and they were young at that point, but they were tough. And then last year, like, they got a little better, and we beat them in overtime last year, but they were better. So now these dudes are like, juniors and seniors. So not only are they solid, but they're experienced too. And again, a lot of balance there. And I agree with you. But look, Gettysburg will wrestle them tough. I promise you that'll be a good semifinal if that happens.
It will be. Looking at the first round, the other matchup that you said, number 7, Cumberland Valley, number 10, Manheim Township in the first round. It's just an interesting situation because Manheim Township, bunch of state ranked guys. The Williams twins, we haven't seen Camden Williams here in a few weeks. We've seen Caden at 113, Oliveria, Josh Hillard, Alicia. So they've got some legitimate hammers. They run 4 or 5 deep, depending on Camden Williams' availability with hammers. But on the flip side, they've had a hard time really putting a competitive guy at a majority of the weights. And that's kind of been, you look at their 10-5 record this year, that's kind of been the story, is that they're going to have guys who score bonus, but where they are not as strong, they have a hard time matching up with a lot of teams, and where Cumberland Valley is probably going to have to concede some of those points to the Manheim Township Hammers, and there's going to create a little bit of consternation, I think, in that duel, maybe early, depending on where things start. But I think Cumberland Valley's depth is a little too much for them, and I think CB ultimately gets that job done.
Manheim Township, where they're tough. I mean, that's just, but you know what you're getting with them, right? Like, I mean, where their 5 guys are that are real tough, right? And the as a coach though, I know, what if they get their 5 guys, right? So they get those 5 wins. What if they get another one? Now you're looking at 6 wins. Now it's a dual meet, and anything can happen. So I would agree. I think that Cumberland Valley does have a little too much balance for Township, but Township's going to score points. That's for sure. Those 5 guys are darn tough. I don't see Solanco posing too big of a threat to Dallastown. I think Dallastown will win that one. So I mean, if you have a Dallastown Cumberland Valley quarterfinal there, I mean, that's a rematch of 2 weeks ago in which Dallastown won 29-27. That was a 2-point match. So that to me is another very, very intriguing quarterfinal matchup if that happens with Dallastown and Cumberland Valley. Yeah, go ahead.
Mathematically, so looking at the last Cumberland Valley Dallastown match, you had Waylon Kitzmiller, who I understand will not be available this week, who had the injury default at 132. So there's one dynamic. And now, presuming Josiah Whitcomb is back in the lineup for this one, that's an interesting little swing there in that matchup. And so if a lot of the other things kind of hold serve from the previous matchup, which I know is a lot to ask for, but if everything else kind of holds to maintain status quo, and you get that, Waylon Kitzmiller, you're not giving up 6 for sure at 132 because of that default, and you've got Whitcomb, who can be a difference maker. I think there's a real path for Cumberland Valley to spring the upset here, but they've got to wrestle up, and they've got guys who, they're probably less experienced than Dallastown. They've been through a lot this year. They've had matches, and they've had a bunch of guys who haven't missed time. So, the great variable in this is how a young team with a first-year coach performs in this situation. I like them to do it. And I do have Dallastown winning, but Cumberland Valley, legitimate shot to win that quarterfinal, I think.
Yeah, I went up to see Cumberland Valley State College wrestle this past Saturday, and the Mockingbird kid was back in the lineup too, and he was out against Dallastown. So, I mean, there's a couple good guys that they're back. So it's going to be, and you can't say, well, we have two guys back now, so we're going to win. You know how that goes. That's not the truth. I mean, you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to wrestle and you're going to have to compete. But listen, I have a ton of respect for Dallastown and Dave Gable, like you said before. My last couple of years coaching, we went and wrestled them, and every time it was a 1 or 2 point match. I mean, a lot of times in the 20s, 29-28, 28-27, and 20. And when you have matches in the 20s like that, I mean, kids are going out and competing. And I just like the way these two teams wrestle each other, and there's a lot of respect between the two. There's no shenanigans. The kids go out, they compete hard, they wrestle hard, and again, that's going to be a good quarterfinal to see, in my opinion. And if Dallastown gets past that, they could be a tough out. And I think you've said it before. If somebody told me that Dallastown was the best team in the district, I'd listen to that argument. And so that quarterfinal matchup is going to be a big one. At Dallastown with a little bit of home field advantage there on Tuesday night. Expect a good one.
So it looks like we both kind of have the 1 through 4 seeds making it through. There's going to be some excitement, I think, 4-5 Gettysburg, Carlisle. I think Cumberland Valley, Dallastown. Central Dauphin, I think we both feel like they're going to handle Wilson there. So you've got some semis there. Let's bottom line this thing. Who do you got in the final? I've got Hempfield over Dallastown. I've got Chalk holding up there. And then I've got in the consolation final, I've got Cumberland Valley avenging the previous loss to Central Dauphin and beating them in the 3rd place match.
Interesting. I don't know. I mean, I definitely would put Hempfield in the final. I think, for starters, like we said earlier, I feel like they're the number 1 team. Whoever wins the Cumberland Valley Dallastown quarter, I think is interesting, because even if Cumberland Valley would beat Dallastown and face CD, well, again, they wrestled earlier in the year and there was some things going on there too. And it's tough to beat a good team twice. I mean, Central Dauphin beat them earlier this year. Are they going to ante back up and be able to do it again? I don't know. I mean, I know that if I'm a coach, I'd rather be the team that lost earlier in the year, coming back and trying to avenge a loss, get a little motivation that way. But let's not forget the fact, man, like Central Dauphin and Jeff have been here, many a times. He's a seasoned coach. He knows how to get his guys ready for the postseason. Every postseason you get their best. So here we are, we're talking about Hempfield, Gettysburg, Cumberland Valley, Dallastown, but don't sleep on Central Dauphin either, and so I would say Hempfield. I like the Hempfield Dallastown, I'll buy into that. And, now if Cumberland Valley loses to Dallastown, or whoever loses that Cumberland Valley Dallastown match will have the Hempfield Gettysburg loser. You know what I mean? So that's a tough drop down that Dallastown or Cumberland Valley's catching. You know what I mean? So that being said, though, sometimes you lose that semifinal match, and I've been there. Your team kind of goes kaput a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like you're fired up for that semifinal, you lose that, and then sometimes it's tough to get your guys back up again. But man, I do see the Central Dauphin coming back and wrestling for 3rd and 4th. I just don't know. It's tough for me to call who's going to win that that quarterfinal or that semifinal, that Concy semifinal between either Hempfield, Gettysburg, Cumberland Valley, Dallastown. So I don't know, man. You're putting me on the spot here. I'm gonna go with Gettysburg. I think that it'll be a Gettysburg, Gettysburg, Central Dauphin battle for the Concy final there for 3rd. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, man. And this is why we wrestle. And like I say, I think who can keep it together here, who can battle back after a semifinal loss on Thursday night, is going to be important too. So definitely some intrigue here in AAA. But I'll go Hempfield, Dallastown, Gettysburg, and Central Dauphin.
Can't argue with that. And that's why they wrestle them. We'll see what happens Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, our AA dates, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. They're wrestling in AAA. It all starts this week. A lot of wide open races, I think, in both of these AA and AAA brackets. So we'll see what happens. That's Dave Heckard. I'm Dustin Hawkinsmith for the Penn Live Wrestling Podcast. I'm sure you'll catch back up with us next week as we look back on the results from this and start to look ahead to the PIAA team championships as well. Stick with us and we'll see you then.